Whoa.
Oh,
There
Ooh, that would have been bad.
Would have been over that quick, wouldn't it? And I was worried about it.
Premature. Yeah.
Drinking.
Yeah.
Okay. You gonna start us off, or am I?
You started off as your channel.
All right. Hey guys, Capper here. Welcome back. This is kind of our first quasi-podcast Q&A. We're over at Pro Staffer Phil's farm in Missouri. We got the ladies here for an audience. Probably more hecklers than anything, but for moral support.
More than likely.
Moral support.
We're gonna do it a podcast. Should we have them things over our ears and the little mics?
Yeah, I think
like
we
Janet
need
Jackson.
I think we need them.
Yeah, we got to. Well, next time.
Next time. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think
first,
the first thing is old Derek sent us this bottle.
Derek Rod.
And I went and bought that old elk, so we're gonna, this is real time. We haven't opened it. Joe accused me of already sipping on it.
It's real time.
Real time. We're gonna try this out. This is good liquor right here. Ooh. Oh, look at there.
I need some ice, no?
Well, your first little nip, you just want to taste it. Ooh. You gotta taste it. Come on, we want to act like we're connoisseurs.
Really? Is that what the big YouTubers do? Act like they know more than they really do?
That's what rich alcoholics do. They say they're connoisseurs, but they're just drunk. It's good. Smells good.
To Derek.
Thanks, buddy. We appreciate it.
And to all of you folks, cheers for joining us. Wow.
That's smooth. For 110 proof, that is smooth. Woo. What did it say? It was 109.7.
Oh, wow.
That is smooth for
109.
For that kind of liquor. Worth every bit of that C note.
Yes, it was.
All right, now you can have a little bit of ice on it.
All right.
We'll make sure. Go ahead, grab your ice. There, let that marinate that ice a little bit. Okay. All right, what are we going to talk about? We had some questions, we had some shout outs. Everybody's been talking about land management stuff on YouTube is a little low right now. I noticed. So maybe we ought to be the ones at the forefront to talk about it.
You know, it's kind of ironic you say that. I was talking to JTF the other day. It's my buddy Joe the farmer for you guys, and we're talking about YouTube stuff. And he's like, I was telling him we got some food plotting, kind of land management videos coming out. And he's like, well, those aren't going to do good till next fall. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, yeah, when food plots come. I said, yeah, but it's year-round land management. It's winter scouting. I mean, this is a key critical time to learn, especially for us being our first year on the property, that you could do a lot now in the winter time to get ready for next fall. So that's probably where we should start.
Well, that's it. It's deer season's 365 if you're that into it. Otherwise, you're just a shooter. You're not a hunter. And when you got land and you got a lot of things to do, race car drivers will tell you that races aren't won in the garage, but they are lost in the garage. So now's the time to start that management work so that we have everything necessary to have a successful season.
Yeah, I agree. It's year round, and every now and then we'll get some disagreeers. Let's say politely. Say, oh, it's just too easy, plant a food plot and that. Well, it's not really. It's hard work. It's year-round. We're constantly visioning, how we can improve the property different ways. It's not just food. It's not just water. It's not just cover. You got all these other things. By the way, we did post a couple of recent videos. We posted one over here at Phil's farm. It's a drone, like a winter scouting intel. I'll put a link to that down in the description below. So if you want to check that out. And then we posted a scouting over at our farm where we were on the ground with the Polaris and hiking, scouting our farm. And then we got another episode coming out where we did a ground scouting, boots on Phil's farm again. So we've been kind of active even though it's crummy winter right now.
Yeah, but it's time to get after, start making plans. We kind of been walking through. I've been trying to do a true evaluation of my own property. Some will say you're supposed to do the habitat first and then worry about food, but time and everything else, I'd rather have food first and then see how the deer move.
Winter scouting.
We got to do winter scouting. We got to start, I put the food in before I did the habitat work, which some will argue, everybody's got their own opinion, but I wanted to see how the deer utilize the property, and then I just want to enhance what they're already doing. I don't want to try to re-steer the deer to much point. I just want to complement what they're doing and be able to capitalize. We moved some stands, and we talked about that on another video, and now we're getting a real, on my farm, where the deer are actually coming and going, the actual trails, we're marking them, and then now we'll plant back to that, and we'll get into the question scenario, the questions in just a little bit about, doe bedding and how we're placing those and so forth. So, now's the time to get after it. It's, what I say, there was 242 days left of deer season.
As of the 15th. He had the days counted when I was over here 3 days ago or whatever.
Because everyone matters. By the time you see this, there will be 235 days left is what we're looking at to opening day, and you don't want to be working the day before if you can help it. So it's time to get after it, get it done.
Absolutely. I enjoy the land stuff. I mean, I literally only hunted one day this year, but I've got new missions in life, and I enjoy the journey. And a lot of people every now and then will say, why do you document so much stuff? And to me, every day is the journey. Every day on land is the journey. It's not the destination, but getting there. So life is short. I enjoy getting out in the field, getting fresh air, getting on a machine, however that happens. But right now it's winter time. But yeah, we got to cover the microplot thing.
Yep. All right on.
So one of our regular longtime viewers on one of our food plot videos said, hey, every time I'm out in the woods, I say, hey, this could be a good microplot here. Look at this shelf, could be a microplot here. And someone's like, every time Capper says microplot, that could be a drinking game. So that's how we ended up here.
Yeah, so Dust Devil, I took some notes. Dust Devil, you were disappointed last time that you didn't have your cup ready, so hit pause and go get your cup ready.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What kind of questions we got?
Well, we had some different ones. We got a lot of people that are pretty regular. Oxford 821. He does a lot of comments. Derek, Rod. Some of these I don't want to say out their whole name because maybe they want to stay a little bit anonymous. Clark kicks in a lot. Bob Patterson. Brett Wan, Brett S. Yeah, Jim. Well, we'll just go with Jim. Jim, you know who you are. Yep. There's quite a few people. Mod Kart Racer. He in always positive stuff. So we got a lot of good guys out there. Control
from up in Canada.
Okay.
They're always on. The Michigan guy too, Hartley. Hartley's usually commenting.
Yep. So we appreciate all them comments and keep them coming. And even if it's just a shout, just make a quick comment on a video if you like it. So, and again, if you want to hear more questions or whatever, I go through and I watch some of them, and Joe watches them, and Joe answers all of them. I just read them and comment to him. So the first one I had on the list, we'll go ahead and start with Clark, because Clark almost always gives us a comment. Most are pretty good. A lot are colorful. Yeah. He was asking on my place when the bucks I passed, if it was impactful by me letting the bucks go, kind of like if the neighbors harvested them, and
I did reply to that, to what I thought was the best answer, but you can.
So for me, impactful, I don't know how you quantify impactful. Did the neighbors shoot them? I didn't hear of anybody shooting them. I did see those deer afterwards, but as the rut went on, they kind of migrated out to wherever they've traditionally gone.
You got to share that story, dude. That blade. I mean,
well, that was a good buck.
I call that a world-class deer. For average people on average property, he got himself from a world-class deer from day one. And then what'd you do?
So I've been watching that deer since July, And the very first sit I had, not opening day, but I'll say the first sit, when it was finally cool enough that I could get out and actually not sweat myself to death, I thought, he came in, but the cameras sometimes lie to you, and I thought I knew what he was going to do. I was set in the blind, and I thought he was a different deer at first, and he came in. Finally, he came in. I realized it was him, and I was set up for him to cross from my right to left, and instead he comes straight at me and came in, and he was 10 yards from the blind, and I was petrified to spook him, and I had to let him go. I could look out the window at him, 10 yards, he was there. Week or so goes by, I go out on like my third or fourth
Well, you
set.
made a decision.
I made a decision.
You were only going after.
No, I was only going after him. And then he came back through another time. I was better prepared. This time he did go from right to left, but he was, the deer here seemed to have an earlier rut activity, we'll say, what most people call a rut activity. And he started galloping, and I tried to get him to stop. I misjudged, and I actually missed him. I guessed him at 20. He was at 30. I sent it underneath of him. He runs and he stops 20 yards from the blind, and I'm trying to get reloaded and the whole bit, and opportunity lost. So I get into the big deer that I guess I regret passing to a point. Big split G2 buck. He came in, and I still had blade on my mind. And he came in, turned broadside at 30, chip shot directly out in front of me, turned, walked at me, turned.
You even took some video, which you normally don't do.
Yeah, I normally don't have time, because I thought, well, I'm not going to shoot him. I'm going to get some video. If I spook him, then I wasn't quite as upset about it. He turned at 20, fed for, really 5-7 seconds is more than enough time to kill a deer.
Yeah.
And then he let it go. It was Halloween in Missouri, which has some different rules than what we're accustomed to. If you shoot a buck during bow season, you cannot shoot another buck until rifle or after with your bow.
Yeah.
So having FOMO, I didn't want to sit out the next 16 days. That's why I let that deer pass. And just a couple of days later, I got a video of the big buck pointed towards the road in a spot he'd never been before, and I know what he did was he left the property, and I'd not seen him since. So he may be wintering someplace else. He could have got hit by a car, he could have got shot, or he could have got poached, which sometimes happens. When you never hear what happened to a deer, they got poached, because nobody tells the story of what happens. Yeah. And we still have EHD. The neighbors found dead EHD deer in a pond in November. So they were still catching EHD as late as that. And so you just never know. He may be gone forever. And I was just very fortunate to even put my eyes on the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof ever.
That's a success, though. I mean, whether you got the deer or not, you succeeded at the mission you set out to. You put yourself within bow range of what I'd consider a world-class bucks. And this year, several. So, yeah, we all learn from our mistakes, and there's buck fever, and there's different situations. But you actually, in year one, you put yourself in front of several mature bucks. And I wanted to touch on the food plots. The food plots, at least for me, so like where both of us live right now, we can look right out the back here and we could see his cornfield, his corn and bean plot mix and part of the green plot. And they got to see deer all year long. And that's part of our plan. Like, that's why I planted a 3-acre fall plot right outside our window. Because just seeing the deer, every day, if you live in an area where you could see them every day, that's just relaxing. I mean, that's just nature. I mean, people pay money to go on vacation in areas where they can watch deer out a back porch. So food plotting is more than just trying to harvest a deer, and it also supports the wildlife. This is going to be the toughest part of the year. The end of the winter is the toughest for deer. Not necessarily the brutal cold like kind of now, but when the food runs out and then they're starting to starve come like February and March, that's when they all die. And so if you have food left for them, you're actually helping the deer survive and be better prepared for the next fawning of this coming season.
Yeah, food plotters give way more than they take. I mean, I could go buy 3 sides of beef just for what I spend on on food plots.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking. I mean, I take my fair share of deer. We put it in the freezer and we eat a lot of deer meat. But pound per pound, it'd be cheaper to just go buy beef and take up another hobby, I guess. But I like this one.
Exactly.
I like this one.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much where it's at on that. So as far as the regrets, I really don't have many regrets. I took a good buck. Unfortunately, he did break a tine just a few days. I got pictures of him. I was going to have him here, but my freezer went out, and I had to run him to the taxidermist right away because he was thawing out. So you won't get to see him until the beginning of next season.
I can't believe though that one. You said he had 24-inch main beams.
Yes.
That's a nice buck.
Yeah, the main beams were 24.
That's a nice buck.
He's good buck. I'm going to have the broken tine repaired. It doesn't bother me a bit. Well, you got a
picture of him. I would do it too.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, that's the glory of him is I don't need to worry about somebody the official score or anything like that. I mean, the score is neat to brag about. It's a way to gauge it a little bit for the camaraderie and some jesting between guys. So it's kind of nice to have that. But other than that, to display him in his glory is the best way to go. So, and I'd been watching that deer, and I had several pictures of him, and awesome buck. I talked to some of the locals, and they're like, yeah, that is definitely a 5.5-year-old buck. That is an old, big Ozark Mountain buck. So. I don't know. I think we're in a good spot. We're seeing a lot. I know I'm seeing a lot more big deer than I did in Illinois, but I was surrounded by a lot of government ground. You had some, and I think your deer quality is better than what you had in Illinois.
Yes. The genetics were definitely a little better in Illinois as far as like a 3-year-old and 4-year-old. But I've always said that, hey, just let them keep getting older and older. And you had brought up a good video that we both watched about maybe you should start shooting 3-year-olds because they have the most growth in that. But this particular study showed that from 3 to 4 they average a 10 to 12% growth. From 4 to 5 it's around that 10%. I'll take 10% each year to make him a 6-year-old. I mean, if he's 130 inches, add 12% of that when he turns 4, and then add another 10% when he turns 5. So I'm okay with that, with the genetics not being as good. But we didn't have the pressure you had. You had small parcels around you. You had government like right on your border, where we had bigger property owners, people already doing QDM and some good genetics over on our farm in Illinois. But I'm seeing way more bucks here. I mean, way more. I mean, it's like at least 6 or 7-fold the number of bucks I'm seeing.
I looked at the harvest totals from Missouri Department of Conservation, and because everything's done with a telecheck here, so 2 days afterwards they're kicking out the numbers. They don't jack around like Illinois and wait 6 months to tell you what happened. So they kicked out the numbers, and I will tell you that 50% of the deer taken were bucks in Missouri. There are more deer in Missouri than in Illinois, and even though Illinois I think has greater square mileage to it, but the harvest totals, I think now they used to have a antler point restriction, but with the CWD zones, they're dropping a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. I brought that up to a couple of local guys, and they said like, well, they're not really concerned about it because there's enough big bucks here that the locals aren't going to shoot small bucks because they know there's big bucks out there.
Right.
We don't have a bunch of public land hunters that come in for the if it's brown it's down scenario. Now the caveat to that is if you want to shoot a spike, shoot a spike. Uncle Ted says if that deer makes you happy, you kill it. Don't let somebody tell you what you can or cannot shoot. Right. But if you're trying to do like we are, and we just want to be able to shoot bigger deer, and I shot a lot of small deer. I didn't care. I like poking holes in them without a doubt. But everybody evolves to a different state of competitiveness and things of that nature, and challenge of yourself. So I think that's the difference. There's a lot of things. A note I don't know that you and I even got to talk about. I was thinking about the other day. Now that we're in the CWD in my county and in yours, you can't put out mineral anymore. Where Missouri used to let you put out mineral. Yeah. But think about it. This is cattle country. Every pasture had a mineral lick in it for the cows, and the deer would use it. And I think little things like that did help the deer herd and the generational nutrition for the deer.
Now, I don't want to get in a tangent. So first we got to get back to food plotting. But just real quick, I lived through CWD, what I call a debacle up in Wisconsin. Okay, I think this is where we're going to end this segment because we had over an hour podcast. I got some bloopers for you here in just a second. But if you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like, leave us a comment, and I'll post the second half of this in just the coming few days. But stay warm if you're in this polar vortex right now. It's late January at 25, and hopefully we'll get back outside here before too long. So here's a couple behind the scenes and bloopers to finish us out. Thanks.
Hey, cut.
Cut. You're over.
Microphones.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to get on that one in a minute. We got to get on that one in a minute. And ready. So hit pause and go get your cup ready.
That's right.
He runs and he stops 20 yards from the blind, and I'm trying to get reloaded, and I was just very fortunate to even put my eyes on the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof. So weak deer make weak deer, so they have to be strong, and then they can make that buck, and he'll be strong. Now he can have low years, he can have a bad year after that, but they got to have it right out of the gate. They got to have that nutrition for that foundation to work with. And